ESPN, Bill Connolly, put out a list of the top 75 college quarterbacks since the year 2000. Quick note on this. It is list season. So if you had some sort of emotional response to this, whether you agreed emphatically or maybe you disagreed emphatically, whatever kind of response you gave, that's what this is supposed to do. Okay, lists are supposed to be picked apart. There is no such thing as a perfect list when it comes to sports, much less college football. But with that being said now, within this top 75, I want to go down to the top 10 here. And let's take a look at it right now because this is what really drew the majority of the buzz around social media. So Bill Connolly, again, this is ESPN's list, has Baker Mayfield at 1, Cam Newton at 2. We got Vince Young at 3. We got Tebow at 4. Joe Burrow is number 5. Deshaun Watson at 6. Kyler Murray, another Sooner, on the list at number 7. Lamar Jackson at 8. Marcus Mariota at 9. Robert Griffin III at 10. So that's your top 10. And listen, it's not horrible. Like, you're going to find a lot of people on the extreme sides of this list. It's not a horrible list, but I will say this. I have some very strong disagreements with this list. I do. And okay, so list season has already got me. It's taken me prisoner. That's the reality here. I have now fallen victim to what this list is supposed to do. Now, with that being said, we're taking the bait. We're going to tell you what's wrong with this list and what has to be changed about it. Before we do that, as we get rolling here, make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. We talk college football every single day. We're both a little bit sick for this game. That's why we're talking about it right now in May. And that's why you're watching a college football show right now in May. So go ahead, make sure you're subscribed, make sure you're locked in. Appreciate you in advance for that. Okay, here's my number one gripe with this. And this jumped right off the page as I saw it scrolling on Twitter. Where in the world is Johnny Manziel in this top 10? They had Johnny Manziel at number 13 on this list. And I about had an aneurysm. Like, legitimately. Johnny Manziel, we'll talk more about like the way that it felt watching him. But let's just go back to just the thing that we can trust. The thing that does not play favorites, and that's the stats. Let's just look at the top 10 here. Look at number 10, rather. Robert Griffin III. Right from my backyard, where I moved from. I was living in Waco, Texas for the better part of the last 3 years. There is a statue to Robert Griffin III out front of McLean Stadium, and for good reason. Was phenomenal. But Johnny Manziel should be ahead of RG3. And if RG3's at 10, I don't know where you're putting Johnny Manziel. Looking at the numbers here, we're going to take a 2-year sample size because RG3 started his freshman season, did well, but his better football was played his last 2 years. So these two guys, their best 2 years compared to each other. Johnny Manziel, in his 2 years, 63 touchdown passes, 7,820 yards, 30 rushing touchdowns, over 2,000 rushing yards. So that's that. RG3 had less yards and less touchdowns in that 2-year sample size. And if you want to say that RG3 played as a freshman, I would say big whoop. Like, that's great. It's great for your career stats, but you want to look at the actual sample size of meaningful football played in your junior, senior years. I don't know if it's junior or senior so much for Johnny Manziel, but your last 2 years, come on now. Like, Johnny Manziel, when we saw him playing the game, he was one of those guys that just took over. Like, the memory of him beating Alabama in Tuscaloosa and the bobble and the throw and all that, like, that's phenomenal. But there was multiple times where if Johnny Manziel isn't playing quarterback for Texas A&M, they're not even in the ball game. Like the Chick-fil-A Bowl against Duke where he's hurtling over dudes and jumping left and throwing right. And like he just was someone that took over games. I'm not saying RG3 didn't do that, but to look at the numbers, to pair that with how you felt about Johnny Manziel when you watched him play football, there was nobody better on the field than Johnny Manziel when he was on the field. Period. The end. Mic drop. That's how we feel about it. Okay? You can tell I'm getting excited about this. So we've fallen victim to list season, but men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Also, you want to take it a step further. Lamar Jackson is number 8 on this list, according to Bill Connolly. Lamar Jackson completed 57% of his passes. Lamar Jackson making a whole lot of money in the league. Johnny Manziel currently on the couch when football is being played on Sundays. I still would put Johnny Manziel over Lamar Jackson. You can't complete less than 60% of your passes and be top 10 for me. Just can't do it. Lamar Jackson, a great football player, a great quarterback, but top 10 ahead of Johnny Manziel? I don't buy it. I don't buy it, all right? Get in the chat right now if you're tuned in live. Let me know the tweaks that you would make to this list if you're watching this as a taped video that we've cut up later. Get in the comment section. If you're on podcast, leave a 5-star review and let me know the same as well. But that's the benefit of being tuned in live. We can hear from y'all during the show. We'll move along. Another issue I have. At number 10, they had RG3. But at number 12, where is Colt McCoy on this top 10 list? Like, Vince Young's at 3. I love Vince Young's there, but I would argue you could make a very strong case for Colt McCoy being the best quarterback to play at the University of Texas. And I understand Vince Young has the going for the pylon. He gets in the end zone. They beat USC, brings a national title home. Colt McCoy won 45 games as a starter at Texas. Colt McCoy could have very feasibly led Texas to a national championship. I know woulda, shoulda, coulda had he not gotten hurt in the national title game. But there was a period of time there where Colt McCoy was, I believe, one of the, if not the winningest college quarterback. He was also, for a period of time there until Mac Jones came along, the most accurate college quarterback. Completed 70% of his passes. Over 13,000 yards in the career. Over 112 touchdowns. Over 1,500 rushing yards. Like, if you want to put a Texas quarterback in the top 10, if I had to switch someone around, I might even bump Vince Young down a little bit. Texas fans, don't get upset. Colt McCoy, I think you can make a very real case for being the best college quarterback from Texas. I believe he belongs in this top 10. I know the Texas fans are going to be after me about Vince Young. That's okay. Colt McCoy, his resume speaks for himself. We'll look at the numbers. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Now, at number 1 on this list, and this was probably what drew the most emotional response from the Twitter sphere, Baker Mayfield at 1 from the University of Oklahoma. Listen, I love Baker Mayfield, dude. Love Baker Mayfield. I think he's one of the best college quarterbacks to ever strap it up. I believe that wholeheartedly. I believe he belongs in the top 10. Watching him play ball, the fire, the passion, the way he elevated his teammates, one of the ultimate competitors. I was at the game at Ohio State when he did the flag plant. Like, there's so much that adds to the legend that is Baker Mayfield. Want to take nothing away from him. Well, the one thing I do want to take away from him is I don't know that you put him number 1 on this list. And the number 1 response that people gave to this was, well, he never won a national title. I think that's fair to a degree, but I would even just look at the guys that are below him. Cam Newton, Tim Tebow, Joe Burrow. Tim Tebow, for a lot of people, myself included, is the best college football player ever. Ever. He's got the Heismans, or the Heisman, rather, a couple of Heisman's nominees, national championship. Did it over an extended period of time at the highest level in the SEC. Like, I'm not taking anything away from Baker Mayfield, but to put him at 1? Joe Burrow had the best season. I understand he had a season with LSU previously before the season where they won a New Year's Six Bowl. Joe Burrow was the epitome of dominant at the position. Cam Newton was the epitome of dominant at the position. Baker Mayfield, really, really good. Was he ever dominant? I don't know that you can say that he was the epitome of dominant. He was dominant at times, but like, I watched Joe Burrow, I watched Cam Newton, I watched Tim Tebow, all 3 of those cats. For me, you watched them play ball, and you felt like because they were the starting quarterback, no matter what the score was, they had a really good chance to win that football game. You felt like they were going to win because of Tim Tebow, because of Joe Burrow, because of Cam Newton. And I understand that Joe Burrow was thrown to some all-pro NFL wide receivers. I get that. But LSU, that offense, it was, we're going to score 60. Joe Burrow's going to throw for like 300, 400, and 4 or 5 touchdowns, try to catch us. Like, that was how they lived life. Baker Mayfield, a really good quarterback, a really, really good quarterback, a top 10 quarterback. I think he belongs in this top 5. But at number 1, it's a little bit rich for me. A little bit rich for me. The dominance of those guys that I just mentioned, I think, belong within the top 3. Now, I'm not dunking on Vince Young. I want to make sure that's clear. I'm not dunking on Vince Young, but going back to that, I do think Colt McCoy belongs in the top 10, and you can make a case for him being the best quarterback to come from Texas. And Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, dude, like, to have your last name and your nickname be the sport that you play, to be known as Johnny Football, like, I'm just saying, I think that speaks for itself. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.